10th, about 5:08 p.m. This is the Wisconsin Rapids Human Resource Committee meeting. Item number 1, we'll call the meeting to order. Item number 2 is discuss and consider for approval the request from Mayor Blazer for an organizational restructure of the Public Works. See attachment. This is, the mayor doing it. Yep. You're welcome. Mayor Blazer.
I guess, is there any specific questions on the chart? It really hasn't changed much. There's, in a previous chart, it had the construction lead underneath the street public works supervisor, but it truly wasn't a supervisory position. It's a lead position, so that was moved down by the other leads. And also, I think that's really about the only change from the previous org charts.
Committee, any questions, discussion? Dean? Sherry? Can you hear us, Sherry? Just, okay, give us a second. Tyler's going to turn you off. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So underneath the city engineer, it says assistant city engineer. Do we have one in place right now that is assigned to that position?
No, we don't. There is a person that's kind of probably is acting in that capacity, but is not assigned that job description duty.
Okay. So, who will be taking or filling this position then? I mean, will you then the mayor or how?
The city engineer would appoint his assistant.
Okay. Their question. So how is the current work being distributed right now without the director of public works?
The city engineer.
And has anyone talked to the city engineer to make sure that they're being able to keep up with that?
Yep, I've had many conversations with the city engineer.
Okay, and they are working as normal. They're keeping up with their load, their current job load now, and their projections and their projects that they're still scheduling out for probably 2023, 22.
Yeah, they're just 2022 plans are have been distributed to the other utilities. They're near 100%, and I advised them that they needed to continue on to start getting 2023 in the hopper. And it's kind of, we're in flux now that with trying to determine on the transportation utility, and should that not go through, then it's special assessments. So the workload is kind of a little bit in limbo, but they are forging ahead, and I think at the Public Works Committee they had a report on the update where they're at. But yep, I've not heard, and through my discussions, nobody has said that they're falling behind or they're not sure what's going on.
Okay, and then so according to the org chart, so as I've kind of mentioned before, but I never really got any answers for, so the prior director of public works had knowledge in a lot of these departments, and so he was a good liaison, had good recommendations of what his professional opinion would be. his experience, an expert in a lot of these fields. So if they run into issues, so if they have issues, then they go to you. And I guess I'm just worried, do you have expertise in those streets, wastewater, and that you would be a liaison for them?
So I don't. And, those individual department heads, I would say, are experts. For me, it's about managing those department heads. And for me, it's also about having them working together to come up with solutions.
And if you're okay, and if they're working together to come up with solutions, so will you be having? And I know in the past you said you didn't conduct department head meetings. So will you be having public works meetings amongst the public works departments then?
Absolutely. Yep.
As a team, all of you will be having those meetings then to coordinate?
Yep. And we'll also be working with Water and Light.
You'll be like the liaison between Water and Light?
No,
and
they'll
the
be they'll be in attendance of the meetings.
I'm sorry?
They will be in attendance of the meetings since they are a part of our construction process.
Okay, so they'll be there for the Public Works Department
Yeah,
or
they'll-
committee meetings.
for
Okay.
internal department meeting. Yeah. Yep.
And I know in the past there was an issue years and years ago as far as equipment usage, and that is, and so parks didn't have their own end loader, and I don't know all the terms, but so the city didn't have to pay for machinery for that department because the streets department had that. I know when I had watched a meeting back in 2010 or whatever, the Water and Light had wanted to purchase something, and then that was one good thing with the director of public works, because they're like, well, we have this equipment, instead of buying it, charging the taxpayers more money, there was coordination amongst the use of machinery. So are the department, and I'm not saying that these department heads are not qualified, I don't mean to intend that at all. I'm just saying who will be doing the coordination for that?
So Paul Vollert technically is in charge of all of our equipment replacement, and that's handled by him. And we had a meeting on Thursday, and I reminded them that this is all taxpayer equipment and not departmental equipment, and that there is a coordination and that they needed to work out based on a priority of schedule and work to how to disperse and distribute equipment.
Okay. And I guess that's just I guess my biggest worry is that if they don't feel like they're all on the same team, they're not going to act like they're on the same team. So I'm just worried. That's one of my big worries, is that it's like, okay, here's the Parks Department, you go out and you do your thing, and Paul, he's been there, your thing. I need to make sure that there's enough coordination, that they all are on the same team, and that someone is, I don't want to say necessarily supervising them, but who's overlooking that in the big picture.
Yeah, and this is something that's been in decades, Park and Rec and Streets, and I guess Jay's here, he can discuss, because he's probably, I'd hate to say, use your word, but probably the expert, because he's got many decades here on seeing the operations between the streets and the parks. I've experienced it a little bit, and like I told them on Friday, and I had a meeting with them, is that with Parks and Streets, the supervisors, and that we're all adults here, and we need to discuss and kind of prioritize our projects and that equipment with it. And we're not going to double up on equipment or personnel. We're not going to get additional equipment and personnel just because we're two separate departments. these, the supervisors and the park supervisor, all three work within cubicles of each other. And what I was advised is that they all have great discussions in the morning and in the evening before they leave. And that expectation is going to continue.
Okay. And so because they're reporting to you, so you will be contacting with them often to make sure that the collaboration is working out, or how will you know if they're not? Or
Well, like I told them that since if they cannot get along, that they need to come and have a discussion with me. I hear enough from them that I will know if there are problems, and we'll deal with them appropriately at that time. But I guess Jay's here. He can explain how this has worked in the past and in the future and kind of everything in between.
Do you have any other questions, Sherry?
no, I guess not. Thank you.
All right. I think the mayor's done a pretty good job explaining the process going forward. I will tell you, I have a lot of confidence in this group that we have. I don't see any reason that they can't work together. We do have experts in parks and streets and wastewater and engineering. I think if they work together, we're going to be successful. So that's all I have. Anybody else? Tom, have you got anything?
Nope.
I guess with that, then I will,
I'll make a motion to approve the Department of Works organizational chart.
there's a motion on the floor for the approval of the organizational chart. I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it, 2-1. Item number 3 is discuss and consider for approval the proposed changes to the attendance and punctuality policy. See the attachment. Mr. Hartman.
Thank you. So just in the realm of continuing to review or update the policies that we have, you have in front of you the attendance and punctuation policy with a few changes, for the most part relatively minor. I don't know if you would just like me to entertain questions at this time, or just kind of go through what those changes were. But the biggest ones were removing a numerical number for tardiness and versus along with a calendar year elimination, just moving to a general excessive tardiness or absenteeism situation.
Is there a current issue with that, Ryan?
Pardon me, Sherry?
Is there a current issue with that as it is now?
For the most part, no. But what our department noticed is the way it was written, or the way it's currently written, is essentially somebody could be late four times within the calendar year, and by the time it gets to January, then they start over again. So we contemplated going to a rolling calendar, and then looking at it further, it's like, well, we don't even need to necessarily have a numerical number. It used to be 4. We contemplated 3, and then just working together, we came up with eliminating numbers altogether and moving to what you have in front of you. So overall, is there a big problem with it? No. I think it just helps us to move to a more consistent message throughout the organization.
And that was number 5, correct? Just to the excessive tardiness or absenteeism?
Yes. Yep. Correct. That would be down number 5.
Thank you.
Yep. And there are, just to clarify, there are a couple other highlighted items up in the policy body. I just want to make sure everybody's able to see that on their agenda, or if it printed out in gray.
You want to just You want to just talk about the all employees, the section that you've got highlighted and the changes that you made?
Sure. So what we did was just to italicize, to really emphasize this portion, and then added a little bit of language. But it was currently written to read, all employees are required to notify their immediate supervisor of the usage of vacation, floating holidays, sick leave, funeral leave, leave of absence, and other paid time off, work in advance if the leave is planned. That was currently there. We just, sometimes we don't do a great job of notifying our immediate supervisors of what we're using and when in a timely manner. So we wanted to emphasize that, along with adding the language of the or unpaid, or as specifically provided for in the policies for each leave that were mentioned above.
Committee, any questions? Sherry? Sherry, have you got anything?
No, I'll make a motion to, nope, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion. Tom, do you have anything before we move on?
Oh,
There's a motion on the floor to approve. There's a motion and a second to approve the updated attendance and punctuality policy. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 3-0. Item number 4, the committee may vote to go into closed session under section 19851E Wisconsin stats, which reads, deliberating and negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting of other specified business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Before we do that, A is in closed session, the committee will discuss negotiation and bargaining strategy regarding labor negotiations with IAFF and WRPPA, and may discuss tentative labor agreements with said units, D, and we may return into open session. I think we'll let this over to Sue, and if anybody has any questions or if there's a need to go into closed session, we can address it then. So with that, Sue?
Thank you. Yeah, we thought there was an outside chance that maybe we would have reached agreement with one of our unions by this evening, so that perhaps we could talk about that agreement in detail and perhaps recommend approval of it. However, we did meet 3 hours today with the police union. We had a great session. We're still working on some language putting together some language for a few of the items. We're going to meet again on week after next, I believe. And so that's going very well. I'm very optimistic that by February that we might have agreements with both units. Fire, we have a meeting with them on Friday, and we're making good progress with them also. So I guess unless you want to go into closed session, and I can go specifically into what the issues are. Otherwise, I think I could just give my update in open here, and we wouldn't need to go into closed. But that's up to you guys if you want to get some more information in closed session.
Committee, what are your wishes?
I'm fine with not going in closed as long as, we knew what the kind of the parameters that we had set for Sue to negotiate. So as long as they're working within them, I'm fine with it.
Yes, we have been.
Dean? Okay. I guess then there's no reason to go into closed session, which means there's no reason to come into open session, which takes us to item number 6, which is adjournment. Is there a motion?
Motion.
What a second. I'll second it. There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. We will adjourn at 5:28 p.m.